In this video, we will be replacing the instrument panel light bulbs in this 2001 Ford F150. On my instrument panel, it is clear that I have at least one bulb that is burned out. We're going to replace all of the bulbs with brand new. Taking a look through the driver's side door, we want to locate our headlamp switch. Taking a look at the bottom of our headlamp switch, we have a small slot for a trim removal tool, and that headlamp switch will pull straight out. After pulling out that headlamp switch, we have two wiring harnesses, each held on by small plastic tabs. We need to depress the small plastic tabs and wiggle the wiring harness free. And behind that wiring harness, we do have one bolt that we need to remove. I am using a 9/32 nut driver, although it is possible this is a metric size. Taking a look at our dash, directly behind the steering wheel, we will be removing our trim piece. This piece is not held on by any screws or bolts, so we can gently pop that free. We can use a trim removal tool if necessary to help with that process. Moving the gear shifter would allow you to maneuver this out a little bit easier. Located directly on top of that instrument cluster, I have an additional trim piece that I need to remove. There are three 9/32 bolts that I can remove. To the right of the steering wheel, we have two additional bolts that need to be removed. These two bolts are connected to that upper trim piece. To the left of our steering wheel, we have one additional bolt that needs to be removed. This bolt is also connected to that same trim piece. We can then begin to pry off our trim. And since this vehicle does have the adjustable pedals, we have an additional wiring harness behind our button that we need to remove. And there is a small clip on the back side of that wiring harness that needs to be depressed as we wiggle that off. And then we're at the point where we can maneuver that trim piece off. And it's always helpful to use a trim removal tool. Taking a look on the upper left and bottom left corners of our instrument cluster, we have two additional bolts that need to be removed. And much in the same, we have one on the top right as well as bottom right corners of that instrument cluster. All four of these bolts need to be removed before we proceed. And this is done using that same 9/32 driver. At this point, our instrument panel should be loose and we can slide that out just a little bit. Taking a close look at our gear selector indicator, there are two tabs, one on each side, that need to be pressed inward for that indicator component to be released. Taking a look at the back side of the instrument panel, there are two wiring harnesses that need to be released. Each one of these wiring harnesses has a small tab that we need to depress as we wiggle out those wiring harnesses. Now that we have removed the gauge cluster, we can put that on our bench and take a look at the back side of it. We have 7 locations with a Torx T15 screw. We want to remove all of those. And then we can remove that back panel. On our circuit board, we want to locate the ribbon cable. And we can gently wiggle that off. Using my trim removal tool, I will gently work off that main board. Taking a look at our board, we have 12 light bulbs that illuminate the dash. We have 6 of one kind and an additional 6 of another kind. If we flip the board over, we can see those same 12 light bulb locations. And using a 1/4-inch nut driver, I can very carefully rotate that light bulb. Until it pops out. Attempting to find the replacement bulbs proved to be almost an impossible task. For whatever reason, the board that I have uses bulbs that are not listed anywhere. And even the bulbs that looked like they might fit had a different wattage rating than the bulbs that I pulled out of the board. I was able to find a couple replacement bulbs that are similar, so we're going to test these out and see if they are an adequate replacement for the bulbs that apparently don't exist. The white base bulbs are replaced with the tan base bulbs. Both of those are 1.5 watts. The black base bulbs are replaced with the blue based bulbs, and all of those are 1.2 watts. We can then reassemble our unit back together. We can then reinstall our panel back into the vehicle, making sure to connect both wiring harnesses and installing that gear selection gauge. Next we have our 4 screws holding the panel in. After that we have our upper trim piece, and I'm going to connect that pedal wiring harness while I'm installing this. And followed by our 4 lower screws, our 2 wiring harnesses on our headlamp switch, and that last piece of trim. And everything looks really good.